You know, when you wake up and take a daily medication, or I don't know, when you grab a packaged snack from the pantry, there is this massive unspoken expectation of safety.
Right, yeah, you just assume the pill has the exact right dosage.
Exactly. You assume the food isn't going to make you sick. I mean, you don't even really think about it.
It's an implicit trust. We just sort of assume that somewhere, somehow, someone has checked all the math. We rely on this entirely invisible infrastructure of safety.
But the thing is, behind that invisible infrastructure, there isn't just like a person with a clipboard standing on a factory floor anymore,
No, definitely not.
right? There are these massive, intricate computer systems running the entire show. And if those systems glitch, well, that implicit trust completely shatters.
It falls apart instantly, yeah.
So today we are taking a deep dive into a source document called The Architect's Guide to Computerized System Validation. And we are decoding what sounds like a highly technical, really dry process to reveal how it actually acts as this invisible digital shield.
A shield protecting everything from, the medicine you take to the food you eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can figure out how to build this digital shield, we really need to establish the baseline.
Right, like what are we actually talking about?
Yeah. What exactly does validation even mean in this context?
Well, to help visualize this, I've got this sort of mental backdrop up today of digital blueprints, like overlaid on a bustling cityscape.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because what we are really talking about is the architecture of reliability. The core definition of computerized system validation, or CSV, as the industry calls it, is the documented evidence that a digital system consistently produces the correct results.
Documented evidence. So it's not just taking their word for it.
Exactly. It proves the system does exactly what it is meant to do every single time without deviation. And that applies to everything from a basic laboratory spreadsheet all the way up to these massive enterprise resource planning or ERP systems.
And those ERPs act as the central nervous system for a whole global supply chain, right?
You do, yeah.
So it's not just checking if the software turns on. It's like proving that it won't suddenly decide that a 0 is a 1 and just ruin an entire supply chain.
Precisely.
But why is this so formalized? I mean, we all use software that bugs out occasionally. We just refresh the page. Why is failure completely off the table here?
Well, failure is off the table because in regulated fields, things like pharmaceuticals, medical devices, food manufacturing, a bug isn't an inconvenience. It's a localized disaster.
Wow, a disaster.
Yeah, CSV is a strict legal requirement enforced by agencies like the FDA. The source material emphasizes that skipping or rushing this process has catastrophic risks.
Can you give us an example, like a concrete mechanical example rather than just a hypothetical?
Sure, absolutely. Imagine a massive stainless steel bioreactor brewing a batch of life-saving biologics. The temperature has to be held exactly at 37 degrees Celsius.
Right, because if it gets too hot, the proteins degrade, right? And if it's too cold, they just don't grow.
Exactly. Now imagine the software interpreting the data from the temperature sensor has like a minor rounding error in its code.
Okay.
It reads 37.8 degrees, but it truncates the decimal and tells the main control system it's perfectly at 37.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The system doesn't trigger the cooling valves, so the fermentation runs nearly a full degree too hot for 3 days.
That's terrible.
It is. You don't just get a bad batch. You get $5 million worth of ruined medicine that now has to be thrown directly into an incinerator.
It's literally burned.
Burned. And worse, if that glitch isn't caught by quality control, that ineffective medicine goes into the bodies of patients who are depending on it to survive.
Wow. That really puts it into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
A single line of unvalidated code executing poorly can literally cost lives.
Lives, reputations, everything.
It can wreck a company's reputation overnight and trigger these business-ending regulatory fines.
Precisely. But on the flip side, rigorous CSV actively prevents costly mistakes, like data loss or unauthorized systemic changes. It makes the whole operation incredibly resilient.
I'm picturing this like a high-stakes restaurant health inspection. Usually when we think of a health inspector, we picture them checking the physical temperature of the fridge.
Right, yeah. Making sure the raw chicken is kept below 40 degrees.
Exactly. But CSV is a whole different paradigm. It's not just checking the physical fridge. CSV is ruthlessly testing the software that runs the fridge's temperature controls.
Yeah.
And the automated supply chain system that ordered the chicken. And the digital recipe database to ensure nobody can accidentally swap a measurement of salt for a measurement of a chemical preservative.
Right. It's validating the entire digital nervous system of the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
The basic mechanics of that analogy work, definitely. But where it falls short of enterprise software is the sheer scale.
Oh, because it's not just one kitchen.
Right. You aren't just inspecting one kitchen's digital nervous system. You are inspecting a system that simultaneously controls 10,000 kitchens around the world, all updating in real time.
That is massive.
It is. And what's fascinating here is that while CSV is a legal requirement, it is fundamentally about building institutional trust.
Trust with who, specifically?
With everyone. When a pharmaceutical company can show their customers, their business partners, and the regulatory inspectors that their digital tools have survived this level of documented forensic testing, they drastically reduce risk. They are proving their integrity.
So the stakes are life, death, and massive financial ruin. That means the rule book governing this isn't just a casual list of best practices.
Not at all.
Which brings us to the ultimate referee in this arena, right? The FDA. The primary regulation for U.S. companies is FDA 21 CFR Part 11.
Yes. 21 CFR Part 11 is the regulation that governs electronic records and electronic signatures.
Okay, break that down for us.
Basically, in the old days, everything was recorded on paper and signed with ink. If you want to replace those paper records with digital ones in a regulated industry, the FDA demands absolute proof.
Proof that the digital records are trustworthy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Proof that they are just as trustworthy, if not significantly more so, than a piece of paper locked in a physical filing cabinet.
And to prove that trustworthiness, the source highlights a very specific framework, the LCOA principles. ALCOA.
Yeah, LCOA.
It sounds like an aluminum company, to be honest. But it's actually the gold standard for data integrity.
It is. LCOA stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate.
Okay, that's a lot.
It is, but every single piece of regulated data has to meet these 5 criteria. Let's look at how software actually achieves this, because it's not as simple as just typing data into a form.
Right, let's break down the mechanics.
Take attributable. This means we know exactly who created or changed the data. In software terms, you can't have a shared login called LabTech1 where 10 people know the password.
Right, because then who actually did the work?
Exactly. The system must enforce unique credentials, often paired with biometrics or two-factor authentication, tied to a specific human being.
Okay, what about legible? I assume that just means, like, the font is readable.
Well, it means it's readable by a human, yes, but also that it's preserved in a format that won't become obsolete.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you can't save critical data in a proprietary file format that requires software that might not even exist in 10 years.
That makes total sense.
Then we have contemporaneous, which is crucial. It means the data was recorded at the exact moment the event happened.
But wait, how does the software enforce that? Because, I mean, I can just go into my laptop settings and change the clock if I want to fake when I did something.
Exactly, and the FDA knows that. So for a system to be validated, the software cannot rely on the clock on the user's local machine.
Oh, okay.
The application has to pull its timestamp from a secure, centralized server the exact millisecond the user hits save. The user has absolutely no access to alter that server time.
Okay, that makes sense. You can't cheat the central server.
Right.
Then we have original, which means it's the first raw capture of the data.
Yeah.
Not like a screenshot of a database, but the actual database entry itself.
Exactly.
And finally, accurate, meaning the software has built-in checks to ensure the data is correct and free from errors.
Yep. And tying all of these LCOA principles together is the requirement for immutable audit trails.
Okay, let me stop you right there, because looking at LCOA,
Yeah.
well, I have to be honest,
Yeah.
applying this level of forensic tracking to every single piece of software sounds like it would completely bankrupt a company.
It sounds overwhelming, I know.
Right, like if I run a lab and I have to build immutable audit trails and secure server timestamps for a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that I just use to track when we order more printer paper, I am spending more time on red tape than I am developing drugs. Does the FDA actually expect that?
Well, if you approached validation blindly, yes, you would go bankrupt. Drowning in red tape is the #1 fear companies have when they look at 21 CFR Part 11.
I can imagine.
But the FDA doesn't actually demand you treat every system equally. That exact friction between the need for absolute safety and the reality of running a business is why the industry relies heavily on strategic, risk-based models.
Okay, so you don't apply the same scrutiny to the printer paper spreadsheet as you do to the bioreactor temperature software.
Exactly. The industry uses a concept called GXP. It stands for Good Practice Guidelines.
GXP, got it.
If a system impacts patient safety, product quality, or the data integrity of a regulated process, it's a GXP system. It gets the full, rigorous validation treatment.
And if it doesn't?
If it's just tracking office supplies, it's non-GXP. You might do some basic IT testing, sure, but you don't need a massive validation package. You scale the effort to the risk.
That makes a lot more sense. So we've defined the risk, and we know we only want to heavily validate the critical GXP systems.
Right.
Now we need a blueprint for how to actually do it. The source outlines several specific models and phases, and honestly, it sounds like an absolute alphabet soup.
It is definitely an alphabet soup, I won't lie. But there is a strict mechanical logic to it. The foundation is choosing your software validation model.
Okay.
The most traditional is the V model. Picture the letter V. On the left side, you are defining what the system should do, moving downwards from broad business requirements to specific technical code.
Down the left side of the V.
Right. Then at the bottom point of the V, you actually build or configure the system. And on the right side, moving back up, you have corresponding testing phases that perfectly match what you designed on the left. It's incredibly thorough.
But also incredibly slow, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the tech world operates on agile frameworks now. Developers want to push code updates daily or weekly. The V model sounds like it takes 6 months just to agree on the paperwork.
That is the exact culture clash happening in regulated industries today. You have software engineers who worship at the altar of move fast and break things, forced to collaborate with quality assurance directors whose entire professional existence relies on ensuring absolutely nothing ever breaks.
That sounds like a nightmare meeting.
It can be. Agile cycles through small builds and tests rapidly. It's great for software, but terrible for the heavy linear documentation the FDA requires.
So who wins that culture clash?
Usually they compromise with a hybrid approach. They use agile sprints to actually write and develop the software in small chunks, but they wrap those sprints inside the rigorous documentation and traceability of the V model.
Ah, I see.
You get the speed of modern development, but you generate the required paper trail as you go.
The source also mentions that the type of supplier matters heavily here. If you buy a commercial off-the-shelf system, like a Ciotella solution from a major vendor, they might provide a lot of the baseline validation documentation for you.
Yes, exactly.
But if you build custom, bespoke software entirely from scratch, you are on the hook for every single phase of testing yourself.
Yes. And regardless of what model you use or who builds the software, you still have to walk through the lifecycle phases. This is where we get into the alphabet soup.
Here we go.
It always starts with the VMP, the Validation Master Plan. This isn't technical at all. It's a high-level governance document. It defines the scope, the risk assessments, who is responsible, and exactly which features require validation.
Okay, so once the VMP sets the rules of engagement, we get to the actual blueprints, starting with the URS, the User Requirement Specification.
Correct. The URS defines what the system must do, purely in business terms. For example, a URS line item might say, the system must allow a clinician to enter a patient's daily dosage.
So it doesn't say how the computer does it, just that it must be done.
Right. Then we get the FS and DS, functional specifications and design specifications. This is where the engineers take over.
Okay, the technical side.
Right. The FS translates that business need into a software function. Like the system will provide a secure web form for dosage entry. And the DS goes even deeper into the architecture. The web form will be connected to a SQL database using 256-bit encryption.
Got it. You are moving from what the business wants to how the software will actually achieve it.
Exactly.
So left side of the V model complete. We
Yeah.
planned it. Now the software is built, and we move up the right side of the V into the testing qualifications.
Yeah.
IQ, OQ, and PQ.
Exactly. First is IQ, installation qualification. This is foundational. Is the system installed correctly in the specific environment?
Like, are the servers provisioned with the right amount of memory? Is the correct version of the code deployed?
Yes. It's verifying the infrastructure.
Next is OQ, operational qualification. Does the software actually function the way the design specs said it would?
Yes, but OQ is where the testing gets really aggressive. You aren't just doing positive testing, entering the correct data to see if it works. You must also do rigorous negative testing to prove the system handles errors gracefully without crashing or corrupting data.
So what does this all mean? Let me map this OQ concept to something tangible. If we go back to the idea of a car, positive testing is pressing the gas pedal and verifying the car accelerates. Negative testing is slamming on the brakes. In software terms, if we have a field for patient dosage that is only supposed to accept numbers, negative testing is a validation engineer actively trying to type the letters ADC into that field.
Yes, to prove that the system rejects the input and throws an error message rather than accepting it and crashing the database.
Exactly.
That is exactly how it works. You are actively trying to break the system in a controlled environment to ensure its error handling mechanisms are robust. And once it passes OQ, you move to the final phase, PQ, or performance qualification.
And sticking with the car analogy, PQ would be taking that car out of the empty test lot and driving it in brutal stop-and-go rush hour traffic in the pouring rain to prove it actually holds up under real-world stress.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, remember the scale. In software, PQ is load testing the enterprise environment.
Like thousands of users.
Right. It's proving that the system still responds perfectly when 500 nurses all log in simultaneously during a shift change, while a massive data backup is running in the background. Does the system lag? Do the secure server timestamps drift?
Oh, that makes sense.
You have to prove it performs under real-world, heavy workflows. Prioritizing these phases based on risk and complexity really optimizes a company's budget and time without sacrificing compliance. And if you find a bug during any of these phases, it's not just a quick fix.
No.
No, you must formally log it as a non-conformance, investigate the root cause, fix the code, and then execute a retest to prove the fix didn't break something else.
Okay, so we've got the blueprints, we've executed the positive and negative testing, we've load tested the servers, the system is validated. We can all go home, right?
Not quite.
Actually, no, because a digital system is not a concrete building. Software gets patched, servers get upgraded, new modules get added, and more importantly, the people running these systems change. Validation ultimately requires a human foundation.
It really does. Validation is a continuous discipline.
Yeah.
Because systems evolve, you have to apply strict change control management. Every single time Microsoft pushes an update to the operating system or you patch a security vulnerability, you have to evaluate, does this change impact our validated status? Do we need to rerun a portion of the OQ or PQ?
And making those decisions requires a highly coordinated team. The validation master plan defines these roles. You have the process owners who know the business workflow inside and out. You have quality assurance, the folks ensuring absolute FDA compliance.
Right.
You have the IT leads managing the actual technical architecture. And then you have the end users, which brings up a really crucial question for me.
Go ahead.
If the IT team and the quality assurance team are the highly paid technical experts building and testing the system, why do the everyday end users, the lab techs, the floor managers, why do they need to be dragged into the weeds of CSV? Shouldn't IT just build a flawless system, hand it to them, and say, here, use this?
If IT operates in a vacuum, the project will fail. End users are arguably the most crucial piece of the puzzle because they live in the messy reality of the shop floor, not the pristine theoretical design world of an IT lab.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when you bring end users into the process early, they unearth hidden mechanical requirements that an engineer would honestly never think of.
Give me an example of what an engineer might miss.
Let's say IT designs a security feature where the system automatically logs a user out after 2 minutes of inactivity to protect the data.
Okay, mathematically that makes perfect sense.
It does. But the end user, say, a clean room technician, looks at that design and says, wait, I work in a sterile environment. It takes me 5 minutes just to gown up, put on 2 pairs of gloves, and physically walk across the clean room to the terminal. If it times out in 2 minutes, I will literally never be able to use the system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The end users provide the reality check against the blueprints.
Ah, so they prevent IT from building a perfectly validated system that is completely unusable in practice.
Precisely. And that is why ongoing training is the glue that holds a CSV program together. The source emphasizes that training shouldn't just be an annual PowerPoint presentation you click through while checking your email.
We've all done those.
Right. It needs to be practical. Short sessions, under 2 hours, so people actually retain the mechanics. Hands-on exercises, like having a cross-functional team sit down and practice writing a simple testable URS together.
That sounds a lot more effective.
It is. When end users understand why the ALCOA principles matter, when they see the specific mechanisms that prevent catastrophic errors, they are far less likely to try and find workarounds or cut corners.
The source also mentions a shift toward the future. Teams are starting to use AI-powered validation tools and automated testing scripts to speed this all up. If an AI can run 10,000 negative testing scenarios in a minute, does that eventually replace the human validation engineer?
It drastically increases efficiency, definitely, but the source makes a very distinct point about the limitations of automation. You can use AI tools to run thousands of test scripts in seconds, but you always need human review to catch context-specific issues.
Because AI doesn't have that real-world experience.
Right. AI doesn't understand the physical layout of a manufacturing floor or the cognitive stress of a lab technician rushing during an emergency. AI can confirm that the SQL database encrypts the data correctly, but only humans can provide the context of how that software operates when a real person is interacting with it.
And that really brings everything full circle. Because ultimately, this isn't just about computers, it's about the people relying on them.
Yeah.
Whether you are an IT lead preparing to implement a massive new ERP platform, a quality assurance manager drafting your very first validation master plan, or just someone fascinated by the hidden technical safety nets of the modern world, you now understand the mechanics.
You do.
You understand why risk-based models prevent companies from drowning in red tape. You know how LCOA principles use secure server timestamps to guarantee data integrity? You can navigate the friction between agile development and the rigorous V model, and you understand the crucial reality check that human end users provide. You know how computerized system validation actually works? But here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, this raises an important question. We just talked about how AI validation tools currently require human review because AI lacks real-world context. But technology is accelerating, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Software is no longer just static code written by humans. As systems become infinitely more complex, and if AI eventually reaches a point where it begins autonomously writing, testing, and pushing its own software updates minute by minute to optimize the supply chain, how will the traditional human-led IQ, OQ, PQ phases evolve?
That's a great point.
Right. Can a system be truly validated if its underlying neural network is constantly rewriting its own logic faster than a human could ever draft a test script? And ultimately, what happens to human accountability when the FDA requires us to prove a system is safe, but we are relying on an AI to validate the AI?
That is a wild thought to leave off on. If the invisible digital shield protecting our medicine and our food becomes entirely autonomous, who is really conducting that digital health inspection? And how do we prove they did it right? Something for you to mull over as you go about your day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. Happy validating.